Good afternoon, Vanguards. My name is Jaren, and I am the Director of Public Relations for VITREUS. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you to today's Tech Talk. We are grateful you are here, and we are very excited for today's broadcast. From VITREUS, I am joined by our CTO, Tim, and our Director of Education, Drew. Allow me to introduce you to VITREUS, a Web3 technology company specializing in providing holistic, cutting-edge environment that marries blockchain technology with artificial intelligence. Designed to automate compliance assurance programs for regulated companies, VITREUS provides a comprehensive, future-proof platform that delivers data storage, data management, and data interactivity for real-world organizations. Our mission is to revolutionize. Sorry, I am so tongue-tied today.
We're so excited.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Passion.
We got this. All right. Our mission is to revolutionize the traditional companies that use digital ecosystems within banking, financial services, insurance, and energy sectors across the globe. The token VTRS is the utility commodity token required to generate V-energy, the required medium to facilitate transactions across the entire VITREUS ecosystem. Today, we are joined by our friend Jason at Western Digital. Western Digital is our vNode manufacturing partner for our various business sectors, such as banking and energy, and we are thrilled to have the opportunity to shine some light on them here shortly. Before I hand it over to the team, if you are new to VITREUS, you can visit our website, vitreus.io, to read our light paper and learn more. We begin stage 3 of our progressive presale this Saturday, July 15th, and we are excited to share that stage 1 and 2 both sold out early. Now I'd like to hand the mic over to our newest team member, Drew, to give him an opportunity to introduce himself before we let Tim take it away. Drew, the mic is yours.
Hey, thanks, Jaren. Nice to meet everybody. We were sitting around chatting about some computer stuff and we got cut off, so I want to go back to that later, Jason. But my name's Drew. I'm the Director of Education for VITREUS. I have a lot of responsibilities, most important of which is recruiting educators to be part of our CAT program, which is something Chad just helped put together called the Community Advocacy Team. And it's really incredible. We've got ambassadors, we have educators, and we're working together to make sure whenever we have news to tell you guys, you find it on Twitter, on YouTube, or a random person. It's all the same message at the same time. And we're really excited to be here. I'm also helping Tim and Taylor help create our vNode, which I don't think anybody's heard of the vNode yet in Discord. I don't think it's come up, but it's something that we're creating. We'll talk a little bit about it today. I don't want to spoil too much, so I'm going to hand it over to Tim to introduce Jason.
Thank you, Drew. We're very lucky to have you be a part of our team and ecosystem. And as Jaren so eloquently stated with her very large intro, and well done, by the way, we have a lot to talk about over the next 6 months. But today, very excited to have Jason with us, who comes to us from Western Digital. As mentioned, we wanted to focus today's topics on basically expanding on the announcements that you've gotten from Chad, focus on the e-chain, the build dates, the build updates, and just really what we're doing here. And this is a very significant topic because what this does is this shows not only have we made a lot of progress with our strategic partnerships, but I think you'll be very pleased with the quality and just the robustness of Western Digital as a partner both in the vNode space and just their history and very robust nature and in their reputation within the world of IT. So with that, Jason, welcome. Welcome to your first Tech Talk here.
Excited to be here.
Yeah, and he actually just moved from Denver to Nashville
That's right.
a couple of weeks ago. So he just got his internet. So he just got in
just
here.
Got internet, and I'm loaded up on Nashville hot chicken, as I was sharing earlier. So I'm
right.
One weekend.
Yeah. So Jason, if you wouldn't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself. Introduce yourself to our community.
Yeah, will do. Thanks so much, and thank you, team, for having me and hosting me here today. Yep. My name is Jason Strotterman. I, as Tim mentioned, live in Nashville, Tennessee. I've been with Western Digital for 6 years now. Made my way here through an acquisition of a storage startup, an all-flash manufacturer called Tejal Systems. My role here at Western Digital is I serve as our leader. It's a global scope. I lead our business development efforts worldwide for our platforms business unit. We'll talk more about the business unit here in a minute and what we do, but most people are familiar with Western Digital Corporation as a hard drive manufacturer. So we'll hopefully change that point of view, or at least add to that point of view as we talk today.
Yeah, I'm sure plenty of people have had a Western Digital Black or some aspect of Western Digital in their home solutions or their gaming rigs. But I really appreciate you coming on board today. You have global responsibility for the platforms division, which really matches what we're building, this distributed infrastructure around vNodes and just the robustness. And we're very fortunate that we're able to take advantage of your platforms and the history that this company has. So maybe take us through Western Digital as a whole before we get to the platforms division, and just explain to the community what you guys do overall in general.
Yeah, well, if you're familiar with Western Digital, most people know us from our 50 plus years being a leader in the hard drive device manufacturing space. We have fabs around the world, operations worldwide, some 60,000 employees around the world. And then we diversified about a decade ago, a little over that, and moved into the flash market through an acquisition of a brand that most people recognize, which is SanDisk. Yeah. Most people know them from the little flash chips that you would use in a phone or a camera back in the day when we actually had cameras to take pictures. So SanDisk and another a flash storage manufacturer called Hitachi Global Storage Technologies, HGST. So that forms what is today, under the Western Digital brand, our flash business. And yeah, like you said, most people know us also on the consumer side. You may have used our WD Black. I know Drew's in the high-end gaming and workload PC space, and very popular brand with huge success we've had with the WD Black. So 50%, almost roughly 50% of the data in the world lives on on Western Digital IP. So whether it's in a cloud, whether it's on a laptop, a desktop computer, a server in the data center, a vNode, or a storage system in the data center, there's a 50% chance that it's landing on a Western Digital hard drive or on our flash intellectual property.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize that Western Digital is so pervasive, and a lot of the popular hyperscalers are a direct customer of yours. And so very happy to have this partnership with you. But for today's focus, let's get into the platforms division, which is where we're really excited. And that's really where or that's your area of responsibility. So why don't you take us through what the platforms division is, and then we'll get into what that means for the vNodes.
Yeah, right on. And the platforms division, I think, is a lesser known division within Western Digital, because we operate mostly as a builder for hyperscalers and OEMs. So it's usually someone else's brand that's going on one of our platforms. But we are the fastest growing division inside of Western Digital. We are based in the US. All of our engineering, the majority of our engineering is done in Colorado Springs. We also have some in Bangalore, and our factories in Fremont, California, and Thailand. But essentially what we do is we vertically integrate our enterprise class HDDs and our enterprise class SSDs into storage platforms for data center use cases. And then the new line of a fairly new line of business we spawned about 2 years ago is this focus around edge computing and data processing. And that's obviously how the partnership with you came along. We have a tremendous capability there in Colorado Springs that we've developed around edge computing and ruggedizing and militarizing as well for austere environments.
Yeah, so let's dive into what you just said, because I want to visit a couple terms. So use the term OEM, which means original equipment manufacturer. So
right on. Yep.
A couple of examples of that would be who, like Dell, HPE, that you build these systems for.
That's right. Yeah. So think of like an HPE or a Dell or Lenovo, IBM, and then in the hyperscale community, your cloud providers, your big public cloud providers, your Googles, your AWSs, your Azures. Yep.
So what's really cool about this technology that we're about to talk about, the vNodes, these are platforms that have been very used for decades by the Dells and the HPEs. And as cloud has become more common in the last 10 years, a lot of the cloud workloads that are running inside of AWS, Azure, and GCP are running on your technology, not just from a hard drive storage perspective, but also from a computational system perspective as well. Is that correct?
Right. That's right. Yeah, and we're seeing obviously a huge trend around extending cloud services now out to the edge. And the edge is a spectrum, and this is a whole conversation that we could chase, I'm sure, for an hour on here. But it's a spectrum, just like cloud,
It is.
and with various use cases. But yeah, we're extending further and further out. And what we define as the far edge, which are environments that are sometimes completely disconnected from the cloud, or in many cases, intermittent at least connectivity to the cloud.
Right. So let's talk about some of those examples that you're already doing world today, and then we'll apply that to our vNodes. But talk about what you're doing in the federal space with the DoD, the rugged, just the engineering, and how you mentioned earlier the manufacturing is in the United States, and how you can track that silicon to the United States, and that's really important for these highly regulated industries as well.
Yeah, that's right. And I'll start with the component. Actually, let me back up a second, because you mentioned federal, and I didn't mention earlier kind of my role there. So we founded our federal subsidiary. It's a FOCI mitigated subsidiary within Western Digital, so firewalled off from the main corporation for facilities clearance reasons. But yeah, we set that up to engage with the government to better understand their requirements, and through that process, one of the use cases that was very, very clear is their desire, their need to extend IT services, and in some cases cloud services, even public cloud services, out to what they call the tactical edge.
Yeah.
So the tactical edge, think of it as being, if you're the Army, it's going to be on wheels. If it's the Air Force, it's an aircraft. If it's the Navy, it's going to be on board a vessel, some 300 plus vessels in the U.S. fleet. And that gives us a strategic mission advantage as a country to push these services out and be able to do AI, push AI and data processing out at the edge in these disconnected or intermittent connected environments. So my point is, we kind of started with the hardest use case first in the world to solve. And that, actually, I'm really glad it did, because it built this muscle memory. We developed this muscle in our Colorado Springs facility, this capability of developing hardened servers to operate in the most austere, harsh environments on the planet. And we do all of that in-house. We have EEs, mechanical engineers in-house, and we actually custom fab our own boards, build our own servers. Obviously, we vertically integrate our own NVMe flash drives in these platforms. And then we partner with Intel and NVIDIA and others for the CPUs and GPUs and memory.
Right.
Yep.
And we're taking all of that and applying it to this partnership, all that experience where it comes to the rugged servers, the extreme edge, like you talked about. And really what I like what you said around being able to process AI on the edge in these areas that are not typically or atypical, right? A lot of these centralized technologies are in a data center of a corporation, and they're they're in a region inside of a hyperscaler. And we are bringing this very robust technology, very vetted. I mean, these are more than a decade old. I mean, there's nothing more rigorous than a federal DoD standard. And I feel very fortunate that this partnership allows us to take that same ruggedness, that engineering, like you said, you've got electrical engineers, you've got clean rooms, all of that happens inside of your manufacturing facility. And then those are custom tailored to our software, our blockchain, if you will, and our different layers. And then we're able to deploy those synchronously. And now we're talking about a true, robust, zero trust edge AI distributed infrastructure.
Yeah, you captured it really well, and that's we share that vision. You and I have talked about this obviously prior to the webcast here, but yeah, I think we share the vision on where you're heading, and I think our capabilities align well with your vision as well.
Yeah, and when you include Red Hat, which is obviously a very critical partner to both of us, and there's wonderful solution sets inside of even the Red Hat marketplace, like our partners at Mainsail. It makes it even a more robust technology stack.
I love how Tim just name drops in there. He's like, oh, and Red Hat,
Well, I mean, better. So with that, thank you very much for the overview of the platform system. So Let's talk about some of the different personas that we're in the process of engineering. Let's talk about the bread and butter, our layer one. Our layer one is our storage, our storage layer, and it's really where everything will be correlated off chain and stored in general. So tell us about Western Digital's NVMe fabrics and the ability to not only house that inside of a data center, but even other possibilities like rugged or portable.
Yes, and we've so I think talked a little bit about our the specialized servers that we build for edge compute use cases. But yeah, as you mentioned, we also build these storage platforms leveraging our NVMe over Fabric technology. And by the way, we also another little known fact is we own NVMe over Fabric ASIC IP through an acquisition of a company we acquired about 3 years ago called Kazan Networks. So this is IP that we host inside of the platform's business unit. So, our vision of the data center of the future is really, a fabric connecting, taking a computer and essentially taking all the parts and pieces apart and attaching them to a fabric, which we believe will be a combination of CXL and in Ethernet using the NVMe over Fabric protocol to interconnect. So a disaggregated infrastructure that will give you maximum flexibility and take these storage platforms and specialized servers, and we can not only harden them, but we can do all the testing required in-house. And that really, I don't want to overlook that fact, the fact that we can do the testing, the shock and vibe testing that's required for austere environments where you may be on wheels or mobile, and the system needs to be able to operate after a tremendous amount of vibration. Barge testing for the Navy that we've done, where imagine a Navy vessel that's under attack, let's say from a torpedo, and being able to withstand the system to continue to operate. So those are some extreme examples, but we possess those capabilities in Colorado Springs in our facility, and that really helps us, accelerate time to revenue for our customers, because we don't have to outsource that. So when you can come to us with a new concept, let's say for a vNode, Tim, and we can design a concept for that, put it on paper, and literally within a matter of weeks have a prototype delivered to your doorstep for you to test. That's been tested and vetted to military standards.
So let's break down what you just said, because there were some pretty technical terms in there, but I want to make sure that we visit that. So you mentioned that you have intellectual property around ASICs. So an ASIC is a piece of hardware that accelerates the performance of the storage itself, which is a very powerful differentiator. So what we're able to do here is what Jason just described is on top within our layer one chain, which is already going to be communicating from a software perspective in a differentiated or in a distributed manner. We're able to match that with speed on site within the NVMe fabric, which is its own hardware network. Mm-hmm. Right. So even that storage is pooled and collected across all of the layer one vNodes, and it's at a sub-millisecond speed because you guys have that intellectual property for those ASICs to guarantee the performance of that storage area or that NVMe over Fabric. And I think that's a big topic, but the reason why that is really important within our vNode conversation is that is a very specific, as Jason said, hardware build that enhances our software as the blockchain and not only secures it from a hardware perspective, but guarantees the performance throughout the distributed infrastructure. To Jason's point, it doesn't matter if it's in a data center or on edge, that fabric will perform as necessary because you said Ethernet, and what was the other protocol?
NVMe over Fabric.
Right.
And CXL was the other fabric for interconnecting memory and GPUs and CPUs.
Right.
Yep.
And this is why I'm excited is we are building out a distributed infrastructure within the vNodes themselves as well, using the Western Digital innovations and intellectual property that they have. As Jason mentioned, these are custom, these are built as needed per vNode type. So that is the plan for the layer one technology, would be to use that accelerated intellectual property with what's called NVMe over Fabric on the business side, so that layer one itself would be not only secure and robust, but would have unprecedented performance within that layer for both retrieval and writes and archive.
And Tim, I think that you just hit on something there that I'd like to build on, is around scale. And as you build a fabric, that's really what a fabric gives you, is the ability to scale, and while you're scaling, to give you enable mobility of workload as well. So whether it be to your point, an edge back to the cloud, and everything connected in between across this fabric, scale and mobility, I think, are two for your data are two important ones.
It really is, and we actually had a conversation about this internally this week about the importance of distributed storage with a blockchain, right? Distributed storage and blockchain to go together like peanut butter and jelly, or pick your favorite condiment. Ketchup and mustard. Jaron, what's your favorite selection?
Well, for me now, it's hot sauce and chicken. That's the
hot sauce and chicken. All right.
You can't go wrong with Chick-fil-A.
Or waffles and chicken. That's the other one. Yeah.
So what I want the community to really understand with these vNode types is the software builds are very critical, and we're very much focused on that. But I'm very excited about this conversation because it's also important to focus on the physical infrastructure as well. And as Jason just mentioned, one of our it really is a differentiator for us, is we can deploy these vNodes anywhere. It can be in a cloud, it can be on edge, it can be rugged, it can be in a data center, but the fabrics are all attached. And this is not something that is easily done, is creating these distributed infrastructures or this distributed storage where it can be collected in these pools. And I'm very excited about Western Digital's, their mature product line here, but more importantly, they manufacture it, they guarantee it, and they secure it. So Jason, talk about some of the security elements across the NVMe fabric. You're not just putting these things out here. You guys have your own very robust security measures that you put out in the DoD, and we get to take advantage of that.
Yeah, we do. I mean, there's obviously authentication. We own both the initiator and the target IP there. So if you have an application server or a vNode that you want to attach to this fabric to serve up some storage from the fabric, we own both the initiator and the target technology. So there's some authentication that occurs there, and we've developed some IP there. I think the other is encryption for data at rest, data at flight, and data in use. And that comes from, that's not just all our IP, that's IP from the relationship that we share with Red Hat and Mainsail. Or two others, and I'm sure you'll do a follow-up session at some point with them. But
you just volunteered them, so Mainsail will be
that would be a good one. But yeah, what they're doing around encryption and confidential computing and zero trust and encryption at rest, in use, and in memory. Literally, the data is constantly encrypted, always encrypted. That's obviously very big. And then from a supply chain, I would take it a step further, just taking technology out of the picture for a moment. Just the supply chain, the fact that we own our own supply chain, and we have a capability of managing that supply chain at scale, and that becomes really important for chain of custody. So we know where all of our parts are coming from, even from third parties. We use Intel chips or NVIDIA GPUs or third-party memory in some of our servers, SAS expanders we use from third parties. Maybe a Broadcom chip here or there, but we know where they're coming from, and we act as that aggregator, if you will, for the supply chain for chain of custody purposes. And that's been a big value add, especially in the defense community, that we're doing all that integration here in the United States, and it's all TAA compliant.
Well, that's critical, or no pun intended, but for critical infrastructure in the United States, that's a must-have. We have to know the supply chain secure. And there's some geopolitical aspects there, but the legislation passed with the Silicon Chip Act and different aspects, that we're definitely going to make sure that the same level of robustness is seen in energy, oil, gas, and pipeline as well. Wouldn't you agree?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yep. All critical infrastructure, and including the financial community as well.
Oh, absolutely. Can't leave out the BFSI. As a matter of fact, I would say they would all have the same level of urgency there from a regulatory perspective. Absolutely. Wonderful. So moving on from layer one and more into the layer two, which is really our AI compliance engine, ComplyQ, and then our layer three, which is our business parachange, which would be a dedicated instance of that of that parachain. Let's get into more of the GPU general purpose, compute model, because I think another very large aspect of differentiator that Western Digital has is the ability for you to bring full functionality AI and edge compute to any of the needed areas. It's not just in the data center. So let's talk about the platforms and what innovations you guys have made there.
Yeah, and this maybe talk a little to the next generation platform without getting into excruciating detail for NDA purposes, or for confidentiality purposes. But one of the things we've learned from our experiences over the last 2 years, being a leader or a pioneer in this area of edge computing, is this need and desire, requirement to have elastic infrastructure. And what I mean by that, at least how we define that and how our customers are defining that, is to have a common platform that's operating anywhere in the world, that they can deploy anywhere in the world. So it's a common platform that can be configured in ways what we call different SKUs or different configurations to address different use cases. So a common platform that can be configured in a way to become a purpose-built for a specific use case, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, for example, this platform that we're working on, we call it Transformer. And you can think, hopefully gives you a little mental picture of where I'm going with this, but it's a common form factor that within that form factor, you could scale up the CPU, higher core count, higher number of sockets for compute intensive workloads. Or to your question, scale up the GPUs in what we like to call a JBOG kind of use case, just a bunch of GPU. And we're seeing like video surveillance, for example, driving that kind of use case. That's a really hot one right now. And in the same platform, to be able to deploy, let's say, spin down the amount of CPU, spin down, or even no GPU at all, but spin up the amount of storage. So packing, half a petabyte in a, let's say, 2 rack unit kind of form factor for data mobility and transport. And the use cases go on, but hopefully you get the point. Is common platform that can be transformed into different SKUs or different workloads and use cases.
And this is critical for our vNodes because, as you said, having a common platform where, let's say, it's a layer 3 vNode where blockchain likes a higher clock rate than it does more core counts, right? Mm-hmm. And then we want to put a couple comply queue servers out there because it's highly advantageous to have that data to be rendered or processed at the edge when it comes back and is written into layer 1 or the chain. That is really important because not only are these very repeatable, right? They can be sized appropriately and cost appropriate, whether it's a very large organization or a mid-sized organization. And then even beyond that, we're not compromising repeatability, security, deployment, right? To your point with the supply chain. And that transformer model that you have is very advantageous for us from the different sizing perspectives of our layer 3 and layer 2 vNodes.
Yeah, right on. I think once again we have good alignment there in terms of where you're heading with your technology and where we're heading. And it's been a lot of lessons learned over the last few years. And anytime you're pioneering something, I know that you can appreciate that. But yeah, very excited about where we're heading.
I appreciate that we don't have to worry about it, and you guys have already solved it.
Yeah, that's right. Well,
we just get to deploy some software on it, right?
Yeah, right on. We do, as you mentioned at the start of the call. I mean, we have a really interesting vantage point from a data infrastructure point of view, in that our largest customers are the largest mega tech companies on the planet. Yeah, so you think about the cloud providers, the OEMs. I mean, even if you go back 5 years ago, our largest customers were the OEMs, and the cloud providers were a pretty far distant second. But if you look at our balance sheet, that's swapped. So we've learned a ton from the cloud community as well as they extend their services out to the edge and what those requirements look like.
And what better partner could we ask for than you're already serving the biggest technology companies and the biggest federal government agencies And all that experience will be applied inside of our vNodes. And I couldn't ask for a more robust partnership coming than Western Digital. It's phenomenal.
We're excited about it as well.
And we're very grateful for that, Jason. So let's talk about the Innovation and Testing Center. So having all of this, this partnership and the maturity of your transformer products, let's talk about how we come together, VITREUS, Red Hat, Mainsail, and Western Digital, and we start really getting these vNodes solidified and what that looks like in Colorado.
Yeah, so we have within our facility that I described earlier, where we do all the fabrication and the engineering, and where we build our prototypes, and we have low volume there as well. Our factories, as I mentioned, are in Fremont, California, and in Thailand for high volume manufacturing. But yeah, we have a capability that we've developed there. It's a composable lab that we make available to partners like you, where we will stand up your environment. We do kind of an initial sniff test, but it's a remote environment where we can do initial kind of sniff test to validate benchmarking performance, benchmarking function, and complete kind of the initial qualification process to make sure that your software is sized or hardware is sized appropriately to perform for your software. And then of course we would involve Red Hat in that, and Mainsail is involved in that, and we all work together in this environment to validate or build a reference design is the way I would describe that.
And the reference design is really critical, because now what we're doing is we're optimizing these vNodes, and we're using line speed performance metrics to ensure that our blockchain on all three layers is processing and basically using the hardware as it should. But I think it's very important to also explain that we're doing that while also maintaining zero trust encryption and all of these other elements. So in other words, we're not sacrificing performance for security. We're able to do both. And that's why the Innovation Center is so critical, because we are able to tune that reference architecture with our vNode software for each of the different layers, and then thusly continue to test that as each iteration comes out over and over.
That's right. It's important to us because our brand's behind this just as well as your brand, right? So, and I know we share this vision, and I know Red Hat and Mainsail do as well, but very important that what we deliver to the end customer is a predictable experience. It's a good experience all the way through. So to your point, this is all about validating the technology to ensure that it's sized appropriately and that experience is going to be a really good one when it goes out the door. We are very, very, very committed to making sure that our brand is protected and that that's a good experience.
Oh, we appreciate that. Drew, did you have anything?
This is like a kid in a candy store type scenario for me, so I'm just soaking it all in. Okay. Jason, back in the day, years ago, people would have to set up their own equipment in their own house or in their own place of business to do their own testing. And if something was wrong, they had to tear it down and do it again. When you guys have these remote things where you can just spin up something, an environment just like that, can you explain or describe to everybody like how that efficiency and cost has changed over time to what we used to do to what's available now? Is when I'm hearing what you guys talk about, you just think speed and efficiency. And whenever I hear that, I just see dollar signs being saved.
Well, dollar signs. I think the other element I would push it. So there is a cost savings by doing this remotely, this validation or qualification remotely, but also time to revenue. Not only for us as a partnership, but for your end customers, for our collective end customers as well, by being able to get our technology deployed far faster and more predictable. So, yes, we literally, so the way I would describe this, and I came from the old school world too, Drew, where we would literally ship hardware, racks of hardware around to do a validation or qualification, and then they'd ship it back. And that whole process would be literally months of time to literally 3 months was kind of our average in the past.
And you also have points of failure when you do that, right? If you're shipping some hardware and something happens to get damaged, now you're back months again just by getting that fixed.
Or it shows up, or it shows up, and there's not enough power in the data center to power it. They didn't plan appropriate. There's not enough network ports, so now they have to call the networking team to provision a new switch. And there's a lot of things that could go wrong.
Got to open those firewall ports, Jason. You got to have that change control in, buddy.
That's right. So yeah, so clearly the time to success or time to qualification is compressed literally from months to weeks.
That's incredible.
Our average now is 2 to 3 weeks to do a sniff test qualification and basic function and performance benchmarking.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. And we put out our target timelines, right, Drew, where we're going to start our mainnet testing later on in the year, and this is another indicator that we thought about this, right? We're going to be getting inside of these innovation centers well before our production testing. It's phenomenal.
And it's, by the way, our innovation center that Tim, you mentioned is in Colorado Springs, same facility that we do our engineering, where our mechanical engineers sit, our electrical engineers. So we have a lab team that looks over the lab, but they literally sit next to the engineers that design the product. So I think there's a huge feedback loop advantage to that too, that we get fresh. If there's something that needs tweaked or changed, we have literally the engineers that bend the metal sitting right next to the lab team.
So you're saying the tech team is taking a trip out to Colorado?
Yeah, I think you should, absolutely. And I moved from Denver to Nashville, by the way, so I'm always down for a little Colorado experience.
Well, you heard it, Chad. Get that on the expense book, Brent. We're all going out to Colorado.
I'm joining the tech team temporarily.
You're in.
New tech assistant.
You're already a part of it, buddy, whether you like it or not. All good. Drew, anything else, bud?
Yeah, he was talking about the timeline from months down to weeks, and I think that's incredible how that aligns with the crypto space, right? People like to refer that a day or a week in crypto is like months in the real world. It's so fast. So like a week in crypto is 3 months in the real world. And the fact that you guys can line up with that speed is exactly what we need in the space. I think that's an incredible partnership we've got here for sure.
Well said. I agree. Jason, any other final thoughts? Because I want to make sure we have enough time for some questions with the community. Anything else that we missed or you wanted to touch on?
I think we covered it pretty well. I'm definitely very interested to see what questions are out there.
Okay.
I think we've stunned most people. Going through chat, most people they're just amazed. They're a little overwhelmed, like Joel just said in the comments, that they're a little overwhelmed. It's hard to think of a question. So we don't really have any right now, but if you guys have
do we have any comments that we want to, any notable comments, Jaron, that we want to kind of go over?
Let's see, hang on. All right. Go back. One was, this is giving me the assurance VITREUS is taking no prisoners when it comes to confidence and reliability. Oh, that was pretty cool. That was
just by having Western Digital as a partner. I'm seeing in chat people are saying, I've used them for years. They're reliable. I love them. I stand behind it. And just because you guys are here, this gives us another rung on the ladder of confidence.
Yeah, I appreciate whoever it was that made that comment saying that. And Drew, you're reinforcing that. I mean, that has been my experience here. And I work across all industry segments across the globe. And everywhere I travel, it is a common resounding, like, we have a good brand, whether it be a consumer brand or business brand. People like our products and have had good experiences. So I appreciate that. That's a good one.
For sure.
Jason, if memory serves, pardon me, Jaron, you don't just take on any project either. You guys have a pretty you vet your partnerships pretty well. As you mentioned, your reputation. So maybe touch on, maybe in your own words, why Western Digital decided to partner with you.
Well, I think we've covered throughout this conversation. I've said multiple times that and reiterated that your vision and your product direction, your roadmap, and how well it aligns with ours, the journey you're on and how well it aligns from an edge point of view, how well it aligns with us. So I think for me, immediately, our first meeting, Tim, that we had, it was very clear to me that we had good alignment. So I think, what do I look for in a partnership? It's alignment and vision and journey and roadmap on where we're going, because that's where the passion's at. You can get behind that and get passionate about it if you have alignment on the vision.
Well said.
That
lots
was
of synergy and lots of passion. That's great.
And I'll add too, just the credibility of the team that you guys have assembled too. I'll give you all a pat on the back here. I mean, an incredible team with a very deep background in the sectors that you're targeting, and some technology and IP from my vantage point that is highly differentiated. So I'm excited about your growth, because as you grow, I'll grow.
Yes.
So we all win together.
Good.
Yep.
Good.
We always say we don't have a small vision, and a lot of our team has taken some pretty big, steps to be here. So we want to see this through to the finish line and beyond. We did have one individual. He asked if he could pass questions on later. Could we take questions and then pass them on to you later and share them with the community?
Absolutely.
I think they need time to digest.
No, that'd be great. Yeah.
That's a lot.
And community, please get that to Jaren and Drew or the appropriate social, but we'll make sure that we absolutely come back to that. And Jason's not going anywhere. I know how to get a hold of him. So
Where's the question? Oh, it says, does the community tech team qualify for the Colorado trip?
No. You know what? We might be able to swing it.
I can stuff them in my luggage.
Oh, there you go.
I got you guys.
Okay.
Let me check Discord one more time, make sure I don't have anything in there. Nope, I don't. So we don't have any questions. But like we said, if you guys, once you digest a lot of our community, they go back and watch our videos like 2 or 3 times. What we're building here is not small. And so if it comes to you later, you have a question, shoot them over to me and Drew. We'll make a list. We'll get it to Jason and we'll get you guys your answers. We want to make sure that you guys are, as much getting the education that you want and your questions answered and feeling reassured of what we're building here and, who we're partnering with. So if you get those questions, just pass them on and we'll go from there. We are running right at 40 minutes. If you guys want to go around and do last final thoughts, and then we can wrap up.
Sure. Drew, do you want to go first?
Oh, sure. Jason, you were talking, when we're in the pre-game lobby, so to speak, about some of the stuff. I've used your products for years. I used to do some content online called, it was a show I called Upgraded. And I would take a request from a person who wanted a PC built. I would discuss what they wanted to use it for, what their budget was. And anytime I gave them a parts list of recommendations, Western Digital was always at the top. Awesome. Now, that speaks volumes because you're talking about going against Samsung's Evo products, the Severant rockets, and all these other things. And I always push Western Digital to the top. So just the fact that I get to actually work with this company, I tried for years to develop relationships for myself just to build computers at a more affordable price. Mom, I made it.
Yeah, I love it. That's cool.
So really glad you're here, Jason. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Well said, Drew.
Tim?
Jason, do you have any final thoughts?
No, just excited about the partnership, and really do, as I said earlier, really believe this is going to go big for all of us, looking forward to continuing to invest and scale this thing. So, yeah, thanks for having me today, and if you want to have me back for a follow up at some point, if there's more questions or more dialogue, happy to engage the community anytime.
Oh, real quick, Jason, we don't use the word if. It's always
okay. When. Sounds good. Yeah. Sounds
awesome.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. So my final thoughts are very humbled to have Jason here from Western Digital. This partnership is, we've been working on this since March, Jason, roughly, getting this going. I'm very excited about the back half of the year where we really start to be able to show what this will look like. Having all of these partnerships lined up really speaks as well. Hopefully we're able to show to the community that we've already thought of these things when we have our target dates, and we socialize that out into the community. In the coming months, we're going to be working hand in hand with Western Digital and Red Hat and Mainsail as we begin our testing and our performance and our security. So there's a lot of aspects to that, and we'll be just as transparent with those results as well to ensure that we're on the same path. But you heard at the beginning, in the middle of the call, it doesn't get any bigger than Western Digital, all the hyperscalers in the federal DoD. So looking to make sure that we take that expertise, apply it to the vNodes, and we'll have more updates as we progress. And with that, Jaren, I think this has been a phenomenal Tech Talk, and thanks for coming and hosting, and as usual. And if anybody has any questions after this, let us know and we'll collect it.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Jason, for coming, and we will definitely have you back. We love to shine light on our partners and what we're doing, and keeping the community abreast of where we are and what's changing, because it changes really fast. Like we said, crypto changes so fast. I wanted to point out for our community that this is a recorded space, so it will be live on our YouTube. Going forward, once this is over, you can go back and replay it, share it with your friends. those types of things. And if you have questions, pass them to me and Drew. We'll get them to Jason and we'll get your questions answered. So thank you guys for coming today. Don't forget stage 3 of the progressive pre-sale kicks off this Saturday. Stage 1 and 2 did sell out early. So if that's something that you're looking for, don't miss out. And we will talk to you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.